Now, for those of you who are new to the group, Stephanie has been with me for, I think over, is it 6 years now, Steph? 7 years, 6 or 7 years. Stephanie is the reason that my listings look as good as they do. Okay. Stephanie is behind the scenes, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. She's the marketing person. She is the visual person. She is directing the photographer behind the scenes, even the sign people behind the scenes. Stephanie worked with people before me, like Michael Muffley and a lot of different agents. She actually worked on new construction. So she's got over 20 years in the business as well, just like me. And I'm lucky to have her on my team because she does such a great job on listings. So what we decided to do is give you a 30-minute tutorial today on the most important things you guys have to be thinking of when you input your listings. All right, Stephanie, I'm gonna go ahead and give you co-hosting responsibilities, and you can take it away from there, and then I will post in the chat.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound great.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I started in 1998 writing marketing for Ingle Homes, a new home builder, and then I transitioned to Lennar Homes, another new home builder. And then I've been in residential resale for a little over 12 years now. So basically everything that I'm talking today to isn't anything that you'll see in a regular like 5-minute YouTube video. This is how to dissect the house that you're listing and to bring out all of its features and make someone feel at home just from reading the description. And also I'm going to give a couple tips as far as photography and videography and what you need to think of when you're planning your listing. So everything today is going to be about how to actually write and dissect a house that you're putting on for sale. Okay, so you can see how to write marketing for a listing here.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Collette is actually going to attach this for you. This is basically everything we're going to talk about today in a cheat sheet for you so that you don't have to try to remember all this when you're listing your homes. And then the second cheat sheet is actually a dual entry form that I use for listing all of her homes. It was my lifesaver because you think you're going to remember everything when you walk through the home, and then something happens, you may get delayed a week before listing, and all of a sudden you're like, crap, where was the laundry room? Was it upstairs? Was it downstairs? And this is what I go to. A legal description from either your favorite attorney, they'll usually do it for free, or you can subscribe to GSCCA, which they charge you, it was like 50 cents a copy for a legal description if you don't want to wait.
Yes, and we covered this in one of our lunch and learns. Attorneys at campbellandbrannan.com. You can send it anytime, even on the weekends. You will get a legal description that day. So feel free, attorneys at campbellandbrannan.com.
It's actually attorneys at cb.law.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's both, Katie.
It's not. Trust me, Courtney and I had this exact issue like 3 weeks ago.
But that's what we're here for, to vet out things.
Exactly. One of us is going to get it right.
Exactly.
So you'll need the survey if you have it for the exact block dimensions. You'll need all their disclosures, the property disclosure and the CAD, especially when it comes to costs of your HOA, as well as the initiation fee, which is super important. And then your appraisal sketch page for square feet, especially if the home is really old, has a lot of updates, and you need to find out what the exact square footage is because the tax records are off. They can be off up to 3,000 square feet. So having that last appraisal sketch page, you can actually override the tax records and type in the correct square footage. And there's a checkbox there that you can also check off that it's from the appraisal. So that's super important. We do that for, about 80% of our homes, I'd say at least, right, Collette?
Absolutely.
Most of them do not have accurate square footage on the tax records. And then you have the dual entry form for the property listing, and you'll select which one. The reason why I would go with a dual entry versus a single entry is because when you're at the property, either during the listing appointment or when you're at the photo shoot, you're going to take this listing form and you're going to fill out 7 pages of check boxes. It's a lot. I recommend doing it single-sided, even though you may want to conserve paper. Use the backside as all your notes on the property. And then that way you don't have to like try to find extra sheets of paper. Where did I put my notes versus the dual entry form? If you have the dual entry form, you've got your notes. Can't lose it. So that's a little side tip. Also, if it's a really confusing property as far as the floor plan, and you need to try to remember when you're writing your listing, how the flow of the home goes, sometimes I'll even do a little quick sketch page on the back of the dual entry form so that I remember, okay, there's an east wing and a west wing and the master's on the west wing. So that's how I use the back of the form. And then the front of the form, you'll have this link so that you can actually see all my notes, which will hopefully help you when you're doing your listings, because a lot of the stuff is already auto-populated when you're typing it in from the tax records. So you'll see on my share screen that I've already noted what everything pulls, so you don't have to worry about trying to find that before you get to your listing. And then anything with an asterisk is required in your system, whether it's FMLS or GMLS. So you'll want to pay attention to that and make sure that you have everything filled.
And I am recording this session, guys, so that this will be something you can go back to when you have your listings.
Yeah, so I try to pre-populate anything that I know I'll always fill out the same way. That way it saves me a lot of time when I'm at the home trying to fill out all the paperwork myself. And if there's a question that I need to ask, then I can automatically like highlight that and remember to ask the client on it, especially like a gas water heater. Is it tankless? Things you can't normally see and you don't really want to, you know, go through a crawl space to find that answer. It's easier to just ask the client, but you don't want to like seem like you have a zillion questions. So you want to be prepared and you know, fill out as much as you can so you don't bother the homeowners too much.
I think Andrew had a question he wanted to pop in. What's up,
Sure.
Andrew?
Stephanie, so you don't have the sellers to complete, like I think part 5 they can complete where they complete in reference to about the home, because I've always had the sellers to complete like the futures part since it's their home and they know more about the home compared to me bringing that sheet and going through it. So what would you?
I would suggest doing it yourself, only because, again, you can fill out half of it just by going through tax records, old listings that you can pull up off of FMLS and GMLS. And then that way it seems like you already know half about the home before the clients are even telling you. You seem knowledgeable. You've done your research prior to going into the home. And especially when you're usually filling this out during while the photographer is doing the photography around the home. It's the perfect time because they're doing their thing. The clients are trying to stay out of the pictures, so they're kind of staying away from you too. So you can go ahead and fill this out.
And on that point, Andrew, you know, a lot of times sellers don't realize they think something is right and it's totally wrong, right? So when you're looking at this, they may even put, well, I think it's electric and it is gas. It's gas and electric, or I have a heat pump, or I don't. So they make more mistakes and they don't understand that a lot of these check boxes, you can do more than 1, 2. It tells you how many check boxes you can do. Stephanie, and my philosophy is you want to max out those check boxes because why? That's search criteria, right? All of your searches, when you're looking at listings online, the data is only as good as the person inputting it. So by you controlling the data sheet, you're actually giving more information that's more searchable and most of the time more correct. And Stephanie's absolutely right. When you do this is when you're doing photography and video. You've already gotten through your listing appointment, everything, your photography and video, you're right up to within 24, 48 hours, you're putting this stuff in. So it's going to be top of mind for you as well. And it's going to help you write a better marketing story when you do it yourself. Agree, Steph?
Yes, I've literally never had a single client fill this out. Every brokerage that I've worked for and every single agent I've worked for, they've always required me to complete this for their clients. And also, like Collette was saying, I have a construction background, so I'm kind of unique in knowing that, you know, the roof is a composition roof with a ridge vent if it was built after 2002. Otherwise, it'll have attic fans. So there are certain things that clients just aren't going to know, that you can do your homework or, you know, Google images of ridge vents so that you can tell the difference yourself. And again, this is all because you want to seem as knowledgeable as you possibly can about their home, and that you're going to market this as a super special property. And if you don't know anything about it, then they're going to question, well, why are we hiring this person? So it's all about being super professional and super prepared. And like Collette said, you're doing it at videography and photography. Obviously, on some of these things, you will have to ask, but overall, been a lifesaver more than I can actually count. Because again, you think you'll remember a property, then you get down the list and you're like, oh, I don't remember. And the last thing you want to do is text the client, hey, is your laundry room upstairs or downstairs? Luckily, I have Collette, so I can always ask her.
And we also, you know, from time to time, one of the reasons that video is also good for our business is if we do forget, we can always go back to that video that we shot. Even if it's just a live video that we do for Insta or Facebook, or if it's a really professional one, it's always good to go in and have that video in your archives so that you can go back to it and reference it.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So how liable is this information once it's in the MLS? Because I've seen some agents say in the private remarks, you know, the information is whatever, you need to do your own due diligence. Like, is this something where if I complete this form and something isn't accurate, is this something that the buyer or the buyer's agent can come back and say, hey, you put this information in?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can actually see, I just scrolled down to the bottom of the form. It says information here and believed to be accurate, but not warranted. I mean, there's everything on FMLS, on GMLS. Whenever you print out those listing forms, it says all over the place disclaimers of, hey, we did our best, but you know, it's not warranted. So yeah, I've literally, again, 12 years of doing these, I have never once had a client like be litigious or anything.
They can't, because we're all covered by that. And when you guys print it out, when you're showing property, like Stephanie said, read the bottom of it. On every single one of those printouts, it says the same thing. Information is thought to be correct, but it's your responsibility, buyer, to do your due diligence.
The good thing about whether you're doing it in Swift, FMLS, or GMLS is if you do have something incorrect, seller reviews it and they'll tell you, they're like, hey, you know, we have a generator, we forgot to put that on the property disclosure, and you can just update it in real time. So the few times that there have been something where we've just missed, or like a tankless water heater because we didn't see it and thought it was a regular water heater, I mean, all that stuff is easily changeable in real time. So it's never been an issue with a client.
I just asked because on one of my closing, it was, the home was on a septic tank, but on there it said public sewer, so it never said it was on a septic tank, and my client kind of freaked out, but she was okay with it. But we didn't find out until the inspection because everything said public sewer. But of course, it's one of the things you could have, you know, we could have easily just looked through the tax record too.
What did it say on the seller's disclosure though? The seller's disclosure would overrule that. What was on the seller's disclosure?
Well, we didn't receive it because it was sold as is.
Ah, see,
Yeah.
damn seller's disclosure, right?
Yeah.
We always talk about that. Yep. Okay.
And that's why our MLS says, you know, all information is deemed reliable, not guaranteed. You're off the hook.
Thank God, Andrew, you did an actual inspection and found it. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yes, I agree.
You can just do a quick video on your phone, walking around the home if it's easier for you, just so that you can refer back to it when you're writing your listing. If you can't remember like the layout, it's really difficult or something, or you want to just remember a special thing like antique crystal doorknobs on all the doors, you can take a quick picture of that. And those are all kind of tips and tricks that you can learn so that you don't forget stuff when you're sitting down and entering your listing. And another item on that is like, when you're doing one listing a month, it's not that bad. Collette, when we're doing 5 or 6 listings a week, all the houses run together. Like, as much as you want to remember the specifics of each one, I mean, it just all becomes a big mush when you're super, super slammed.
And it's good to start out doing it this way, guys, while you're learning the listing, so that when you are slammed, you've got the process.
Okay, so next you're going to research the property. You have all of your paperwork. I always Google map, no matter how much I think I know, like Murphy Candler Park, I still Google map it. And I just move around the Google map within a 1-2 mile radius and make sure that I note anything that is of importance: country clubs, golf clubs, YMCAs, private schools, everything. So I do the Google Maps and I write all my notes as far as what's around in the area. And then Colette's really, really good at this. Maybe she has a tip, but she knows the topography of Atlanta, which is super critical. She already knows, like, okay, there's going to be a great view of this house to Sandy Springs downtown, and she'll go ahead and order a drone footage of that home. That's also something that you need to think about when you're researching. If there's anything in the area that you might need either an extra shoot with, like when it comes to the swim and tennis clubs, a lot we do drone, because it's really the only way you can get a good shot of the community amenities.
Right, and how many pictures can we put in FMLS and MLS now, like 100 or something?
It's a ridiculous amount.
Like when we first started, guys, we got 28. So it was like, okay, now I would say you don't need to put every photo in, and Stephanie will go into that. But having photos of things around that are really special, swim and tennis, like you said, the Vinings Jubilee, Silver Comet Trail, if it's close. I'm really good at topography. Most importantly, is identifying floodplains. That's why I'm really good at it, but I can do that just basically by looking at past pictures. But I would say about 90% of the time we don't do full drone. It's only when we know that there's some really special stuff around that it is unique to that property.
That will also enhance your listing. Now, I do want to note on FMLS and GMLS, they do not allow commercial buildings in their listing. So if you take a shot of Vinings Jubilee or, some like Chastain Amphitheater, unless it's viewable from the house, you are not allowed to put that photo in. They will flag your listing and remove it until you fix that, and fine you if you don't remove it after a week. So you can still use those photos for like website marketing, for video. If you do a video, then you can B-roll that stuff in. It's useful, but just know when it comes to FMLS and GMLS, unless it's within view of that house, you cannot put any commercial building in. You can only put like amenities of the community is specifically what is allowed in there. So you can shoot the swim and tennis down the road. That's actually inside the community, like Burnwick, but you cannot go and shoot Atlanta Country Club and insert that in and say, yeah, it's 10 miles from the property. And then also, if you have a really unique property, make sure you research the products, the brands. If you're unfamiliar with it, like, oh, they have a dual fuel 48-inch, Wolf range. Well, if you don't know what that is, research it. Research it so that you can write something about it. It doesn't have to be a lot. There are some really unique properties that, from trim details of special wainscoting, I'm always looking online, learning new stuff about properties even today, just to be able to sell it as best I can. So Google is your best friend when it comes to this stuff. Another thing is you're going to need to know what school is for your listing. I'd say about 40% of the time, the previous listing on the home is wrong, between school districts changing over the years and also just the agents not bothering to look it up and using the listing before that and it being wrong. So do your homework. If you're unfamiliar with an area, I've noted the actual link. This is for DeKalb, which we use the most. And if you type into Google DeKalb County School Locator or any other Fulton County School Locator, it'll pop up a map, which is great. And you can just type in your address right here. And it'll automatically pull up everything you need to know. This is one of our current listings under contract. But yeah, you can see it shows right here where the home is and all the schools. And my rule of thumb is for most places, if it's within a mile from the school, it's not covered under the bus routes. But if it's over a mile and not walkable, then it'll be on a bus route. So that's a little cheat when it comes to trying to whether or not to check off those boxes if it's on a bus route or not. You can look them up, but they're a little bit more difficult to go through on the school pages. So this is the easiest way I find to double check that stuff. That I check. And then also when it comes to condos and townhomes, FHA approval. Almost always in Atlanta, it's not FHA approved because of our price points being so high. But this is a good way to check. You just go ahead. And again, I have all these hyperlinks for you. You can go ahead and sort by all of these items, and it'll tell you whether or not it's FHA approved or not. So we've gone through our research. We've found our schools. We've found whether or not it's condo approved, FHA approved or not. Now we're going to go through all the photos and resort. The reason why you're doing this is when you're writing, you're going to want to go from how you would show a home from the front door through the main level, then onto the upper level, and then the basement, and then the exterior backyard. That's naturally how you would walk through a property. If it's an unusual property, it may vary a little. If you have a spectacular deck or sunroom or something outside of your breakfast area family room, then you might want to deviate and do the main level, do the spectacular, main level views of a creek, of a pool or whatnot, and then continue on to the rest of your sleeping areas. But for the most part, you're going to always follow that same path of front door, back door, upstairs, downstairs, exterior backyard. When I resort these, one, it helps me write better because I just click through as I'm writing. And then the second thing is that it takes, in my experience, like a ridiculous amount of time to try to reshuffle them, whether you're in FMLS, GMLS, or Swift, trying to resort them after the fact. So this is just a lot easier method for me, is just go ahead and resorting them. Another thing, I'm not sure about FMLS or GMLS, but I know with Swift, you cannot upload anything from a third-party server. That means that you have to have those photos on your desktop or laptop. You can't have them in Dropbox and try to upload them through there. You have to have them on your desktop, and that's just an anti-malware function of these softwares.
So Stephanie, I know you've mentioned Swift a couple of times. And so for the newer agents, can you just explain what Swift is?
So Swift is a dual entry system. I've used it ever since I started resale. Basically what it does is it's one pane, but it has all the FMLS and the GMLS questions in there, and it auto-populates all of that information to both MLSs, so you don't have to double. Obviously, FMLS and GMLS is free, but then you have to do double the work. I'd rather just check all the 7 pages of checkboxes once and automatically upload to both systems.
But again, guys, we've been doing this a long time. Our business is majorly listings. It's expensive to use Swift. So while you're getting your feet under you, just know you're going to be doing 2 different, or whichever MLSs you're in, Lake Country MLS, Georgia MLS, you'll probably do it separately both times, but we use Swift.
And it's not really expensive. I mean, we do 40 to 50 listings a year, and I think it costs us $180 in tokens for the entire year. So it's the amount of your Canva subscription if you do want to go that route. The main reason why I use it though is because for the 10 plus years I've been using it, it's only been down twice for 5 minutes. That's it. 10 years. Google doesn't even have that rating. Facebook, all of them crash more than that. Love the fact that I can always depend on it. And especially when you've promised a client, hey, I'll have it up by 5 p.m. You don't want to call them and be like, well, the software system is going through a bit of a time. I don't know when it's going to go up. It's always up. When you're going through the photos, you will totally see things that you didn't see the first time around because maybe the homeowner was around talking to you the entire time or whatnot. So you're going to just note down any additional items that you see on the photos that you didn't notice before. Now you're going to write. So you're going to open up your Microsoft Word. I always do it in Word because it has a character count. Now you don't really have to worry about it, but back in the day, we only had 750 characters, and that included spaces. It was basically like 5 sentences you could write for an entire listing. It was awful. Now you have 4,000. I do not advise using 4,000 because you're going to bore the people that are reading on the other side. The most I've ever used is 2,000 now, and that's for a really high-end $1 million home with a lot of amenities. So what I do is I actually take all of my notes, my tax records, everything else, and I go ahead and write all the pertinent details of the home that I want to get across. Also, if your client gives you an upgrade list, that's a great tool to use to make sure that you remember that, you know, they repaved the driveway 3 years ago or whatnot, any big ticket items you're going to want to do. So the first thing I do is I make sure I write all the details, and then I'll fluff it up later. So I might use a couple beautifuls in there, but I'll wait until the end to see how many characters I have in order to add that fluff and just narrow down. The other thing I want to say is use your words carefully because you don't, while you do have that disclaimer, you don't want to say anything in error. Like a lot of people use jacuzzi tub for anything that's a jetted tub, but jacuzzi is a name brand. So you don't necessarily want to use that. You want to use jetted tub. If you're not sure whether it's quartz or quartzite on the kitchen counters, use stone as an adjective. That way you're safe. I like to use wardrobe room or dressing room rather than walk-in closet because everybody has a walk-in closet now. And if it's truly the size of a room, then I'm going to try to make it sound grand and beautiful and someplace that you actually want to get ready in the morning.
Owners,
so that's why.
And you know, you also have to remember a lot of things about fair housing guys, right? So there are things that annoy people or piss them off. You don't want to use master suite anymore. We use owner's suite, owner's spa. We don't like to use anything that says walking distance, okay? Even though that's not necessarily.
Yeah, use stuff more generic, like minutes away or nearby, something that's non-specific. So it's not actually, unless you know that it's exactly a mile away, then you can say, you know, Murphy Candler Park is, you know, 1 mile away. But otherwise, we pretty much always use now minutes away or nearby. Also, never say kid-friendly neighborhood. That is discrimination. That's familial status. Don't use it. You can say if it's factual that there is a play set in the backyard because that is what is called, but do not say kid-friendly area, neighborhood, you know, kids in the neighborhood, anything relating to that. So yeah, just choose your words. Try to just get the basics on first. And then as you're proofing it, then you can add in, you know, some special adjectives and stuff to give it that warm, fuzzy feeling. But the main thing is you just want to make sure that you don't miss that it has an irrigation system, which is a huge selling point, you know, stuff like that. So you're going to type out in Microsoft Word all the basics. This just basically goes over what I already told you as far as writing it from front door to the exterior backyard, making sure that you have anything that is high-priced item in the past 5 years, new roof, closed cell foam and attic, things that a buyer is not going to, they're not going to open up the attic access and see that it's closed cell foam, which is a huge selling feature as far as energy efficiency. So you just want to make sure that you have all those big ticket items in the public comments. And then anything that might be questionable or seem like a possible negative, try not to put it in public comments, put it in private comments to the buyer's agent, because they can explain it in a way that the buyer is not going to freak out. So if your client just waterproofed the crawl space, that's a big ticket item and a great selling point. But if you put it in public comments, people who don't know what that means might be like, oh my God, there was a crazy flood and there's a lake underneath the house. And that's not the case at all. There might not have even been any mold or anything else. They just did it to improve the resale of the property. Well, buyer's agent is going to be able to explain all that and have the buyers not go to their own crazy assumptions.
It's all about getting them through the door, guys. And the buyer's agent is going to give them the details, knowledge and information that they have from their private remarks. But yeah, you keep any of those negative things out of the public remarks. And also Matt just put in the chat a really great document of fair housing words that you should avoid, as well as acceptable words. So keep that, have that posted along with Stephanie's stuff as well, because that's a perfect document. Thank you, Matt.
You're gonna do your character count, you're gonna fluff it up, you're gonna make sure that everything in there that's a big ticket selling item is in there in the public remarks so that they see it. If it's something that could potentially freak someone out, you're gonna put it in private comments. Same thing with photos. If there's anything that can be construed as a negative, omit it. Especially now that we have so many photos, you can kind of get carried away and put 70 photos on there and really only 45 are needed.
And what she means by that,
a lot of
guys,
things are,
and what you mean by that is you don't need to show the inside of a closet. Okay. You don't need to show a toilet seat up. We're not saying omit things that are important. Just don't put everything in. Some pictures don't turn out really that great. So don't put the crappy ones in, right, Steph?
yep. And I actually have some samples. This is about $1 million. And we did twilight shots as well as daylight shots. Well, you might think on the outside, this is a pretty nice, twilight shot. Me being in construction and buyer's agents who know construction, they're going to see it as something different. The very first thing I see are all the stucco cracks that are highlighted by these uplights. So all of a sudden I'm like, there might be water damage going into that window. It looks like that's just the seam, but that looks like it might have been a structural crack. Again, if it's anything that can be misconstrued as negative, don't add it. So instead, in the daylight shot, look how much better it looks. You can't see any of those cracks, anything that might be considered a negative. So there's an example of one. This is a great shot of drone footage on a community. This is how you can show the pool, swim, tennis in one photo that looks amazing. This community also was right next to the Chattahoochee River and had a separate park. So we have a drone footage of the Chattahoochee. Drone does work for your advantage. This is the home we actually listed. So you can take this two ways when you're actually writing the listing of the half hour, to downtown. That way you're not in the thick of it. Or you can change wording. This is the same exact house right here, but this is Sandy Springs. So if you wanted instead to take a different way in marketing, minutes from perimeter center, all the shopping, dining, entertainment you want, this photo that can do a totally different twist on it where you're not so close to the city. It just depends on, again, the location of the house, knowing your area, doing the research beforehand so you know exactly how you want to market the piece. This is a gorgeous twilight shot, shows how it's a total entertaining oasis in the backyard. And then I'll show you the difference of the daytime shot. Looks like an average backyard, nothing special. It's a beautiful porch, but in the daytime, it just looks like every other house on the market. Collette knew this. She knew that the client had a landscaping lighting package, that there was uplighting in the back tree area. And so we had special twilight photography shot to accent this. I fully believe this is one of the reasons it went under contract so fast, because it does look absolutely gorgeous at nighttime. So make sure you ask your clients on that.
And you can't see that in a normal showing, guys, right? So our job when we list a property is to highlight those really amazing pieces of their home. And that's one of the reasons, if you've gone on a listing appointment with me or we've done the listing checklist, I ask what are your top 3 things you love about the house? And what are the top 3 things you hate about the house? Because the things that you love, I'm going to try to showcase in photography and videography a little bit different. And the things they tell me they hate, I'm going to try to mitigate it in our marketing. So we already know when we're going into the photography, and I can give Stephanie the videos and the pictures that what they love and what they hate about it, because that's what's going to come back with the next buyer.
And I've got another no shot. You can see all the brown patches in the grass, even though it's upgraded grass, beautiful landscaping. The first thing I look at are all these brown patches.
And what do you
So-
say? What do you say, Stephanie, when a client says, "But why can't you just Photoshop it?
Because it is highly illegal.
Can't you just fill that in with a little green?"
Yeah, basically, if there was a leaf on one of those stones, I could Photoshop it out because anybody could easily just brush it off with their hand. But if it is a material fact of that property, which includes brown grass, I can't fill it in. Can't. You can totally lose your real estate license. You can be fined a ridiculous, I think FMLS might be up to $15,000 fine for material fact. Don't cave. No, I know you may want the listing, but it's not worth your license. It's not. So here's one that we ended up not using because the first thing that someone might look at is, oh, I've got to redo the yard, even though it was just landscaped. Now, in another shot, same house, you don't see the brown spots. You see this beautiful pool, all the night lighting. Me and my stucco issues, I don't see any cracks. We ended up using this photo instead. So just because you might think that a photographer is a pro and does this all the time and knows what they're doing, you have to look through the photos yourself and just think of it on a buyer side that knows nothing about construction. So you want it to look pretty and perfect and meticulous all the time, as much as you can. But then you also want to think from a buyer's agent perspective or anyone who might know a little bit about construction, that you don't want to put anything might be like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. I'll move on to the next home. At least get them into the home for the showing.
And guys, if you're meticulous like this, other sellers are comparing your listing to other listing agents in the neighborhood, right? So if you see bad photos, but they're a listing agent that's bad, I mean, this is in my listing package, like what we do for photography and videography, because it's very important, because how many people have seen those bad MLS photos? This is your credibility marker for your listing too, for getting more work. So just always remember, it's for selling the property, it's getting in front of the buyer, it's showing the best features of the home, the unique features, and also down the road for you to get additional work and credibility in the marketplace.
And you're not purposely hiding anything. I mean, most photographers will take like 4 angles of the family room. So you just want to use the shot of the family room that shows the most floor, so people can look and see, okay, I'm not going to knock my knees on furniture because it's too small of a space type of thing. So you just want to look through the photos because the photographer gives you multiples of the same room for the most part. And you just want to pick the one that looks the best. Here's another drone shot. You have to use drone on this. You're not going to get this angle any other way. That's a little bit about photography and how to pick and choose what photos you get back. So this is just a print screen of Burnwick that's under contract. Of my public comments, I always write how many characters it is and how many I have remaining in case I forget something and need to add something else, so I'm not constantly doing the math. And then you can see in the private comments, I have all of the stuff about showings, open houses, but more importantly, remember when I said you don't want to freak out the public on some updates that may be big ticket items you still want the buyer's agents to know? Well, replace retaining wall along backside of yard as well as left side of house in 2021. That could be something that somebody could really freak out about because they're like, oh my God, the house is sliding into the creek. Not the case. They were proactive and they went ahead and did it in order to sell the home because they wanted to sell their home as best as it possibly could be. Same with, replaced electrical panel in 2019. Some buyers with no background in construction might think, oh my God, maybe there was an electrical fire, silly things. That buyer's agents, we deal with this on a daily basis. It is not anything big, and they're able to diffuse the situation if the buyers misconstrue something. So that's a good example of stuff that we put in the private that the buyer's agents can say, but the public doesn't, go into any weird assumptions. Last but not leastly, a lot of people do not put the directions. to the home anymore. They just say use GPS. That is great if you have great reception. If you do not, which oddly enough, in a lot of Atlanta, there is sucky reception and your GPS will freeze. And if you've got clients behind you going to the home, you don't know where to go. So I always still put the directions, one, because I want to guide them along the best streets with the best amenities or the least amount of traffic or whatnot. When you're in a gated community, you want to have them go to the left around the beautiful pool and community house versus going to the right and maybe going past the trash compactor and smelling the smell. Those are simple things that you can relay in the directions, guide them the right way, but also with GPS, you're going to be their lifesaver if they can really quickly just lift up that piece of paper that they printed out and make it the rest of the way without having to stop and explain to the clients, well, we lost GPS. I got to figure out how to get the rest of the way there. That's something I highly advise, but it's up to you. And then this is just a print screen of what Swift is. It's really ugly, but it works. And I'm happy to walk any of you guys through it. It's just a simple program. And you can see on this, you can see where it has FMLS in the center column and GMLS in the right column. So this is what it looks like on the back side. And like I said, it's just super simple. I just go through all the different, things. And on Swift, anything that's underlined is a requirement. So that is your asterisk. You have to fill it out in court, and they're updating it like every 2 months. So always make sure to go back to FMLS forms if you need to, and just make sure you have the latest and greatest. Up at the top of this cheat sheet, I have the hyperlink straight to the FMLS forms for you. So you can always check that. This is basically everything that I do, not even relating to putting in the listing yet. This is all the work behind the scenes just to get the listing prep.
And then she puts it in the system. So we always set expectations with our sellers that it takes us 8 hours to get one listing in because we are so meticulous. So she'll start on a listing at 11 and we'll be done by 7:30. And why do we do it that way, Steph? Timing wise.
So 7 o'clock is our high time on Facebook for social posting between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. And you can always look on the back of your business page at when your highest views are per day, because they actually change per day. Monday through Wednesday are usually the slowest. So we try to always do our listings towards the end of the week, Thursday or Friday.
Okay, guys, what questions do you have? We're a little bit over 12. I appreciate you guys.
Sorry.
No, it's good. All great information. We did have some questions on Swift. Is it a standalone or is it tied to MLS? It's standalone, correct, Steph? Yep. And is the fee, I know I saw someone else's question, is it $180 total annually? Is there a subscription cost?
So they used to be a subscription. Now there's none. It's totally free to sign up and to download it. It is a web-based program. However, you do have to have enough juice in your computer to save all the photos and all the data on your listings. So it's totally free. All you do is buy tokens now, and it'll show on the website, mlsswift.com. So you can go here and it'll tell you all of the information that you need. And somewhere in here, are your token pricing. So $180 is for about 50 listings, and God knows how many redos we do as far as like changing the open house dates and stuff like that through Swift. I'd say for someone that does maybe 10 or under listings, maybe $50 a year, maybe. I mean, it just depends on how many tokens you use.
Because every time you go in to change something, also you're using a token, correct?
Yeah, so it'll tell you, okay, 1.8 tokens to add a listing, but then it's 0.03 tokens per each individual photo. That's another reason you don't want to put 75 photos on there when you really only need 45. It is free to sign up. You just have to use tokens, and it'll depend on how many listings you do and how many changes you do via the Swift system. A way to reduce cost is you can do the whole initial listing in Swift and then do all of your changes in FMLS and GMLS. And sometimes I do that when it comes to the open house notices, because I don't want to keep having her charge 0.6 of a token every time we do a new open house. So instead it'll go through FMLS and GMLS and just update the private remarks saying, you know, open house on 3/6 versus 2/6. So that's a way you can reduce fees if you need to be super conscious about that. It really has saved me on so many accounts, because I mean, you'll even populate this and then all of a sudden FMLS will go down, but at least your listing is in.
When you have listings, it is very, I mean,
Whatever the back end is fixed and my listing's up.
yep.
I didn't even have to put in a ticket. They're already on top of it. It's just amazing. So.
Okay, guys, so.
Do you use it on a PC or Mac? Because there's a note about the
Yep.
Macs, but it's very old from 2007.
I'm on a PC, but back in the day, it did have an issue with Macs. And yeah, you have to do if you're on an Apple Mac product, you might have to download a PC screen, basically. I don't know how else to call it, like a separate desktop, but it mimics a PC so that it can read all your information in Swift. I don't know if you still need it or not. You can always contact Victor at Swift, and I have his email address. He's been around there as long as I've been in the industry.
So guys, this has been a good starting point for you, okay? This is all the details, how you go about it. Now, when you have your first listing and everything gets inputted, if you want us to review it, we're happy to help you guys out. We're happy to review it, tell you what we think of it, maybe adjust a few things. But you've got a good starting point, right? So Stephanie is very busy with my business and I'm very busy, but we want to make sure that if you guys have done this type of training, reviewed it before you put it in and you need help, we're here to help you. Just don't come to us and say, you know, ask a bunch of questions that have already been addressed in this hour-long training. That's going to make us annoyed. Got it?
And I'll probably just refer you back to the sheet.
Yeah, she'll just go, fine, no worries. But she's done this for many of you guys out there when you've had listings that you just needed another little punch, of little eyeballs on it. She's happy to do it. She's a marketing queen. She's got all the verbiage. It comes second nature to her, but we're just asking you to do your due diligence first, get it started, get a good foundation, and then let us go in and pop it up for you. Okay.
Give me a little bit more notice than a couple hours. I appreciate it.
It's not over. It's not instantaneous. None of our listings are, nor should they. You guys have to take some time on this stuff. That's why when we put a house on the market, we literally set expectations to our sellers. It takes us 8 hours to get a listing in, number one. Number two, we need at least 2 weeks notice of when you're going to be ready so that we can be sure that we have the proper photography, videography, and I've blocked out Stephanie's schedule. All right, what other questions do you have before we end this call? Anything? Did you guys find this useful?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
I figure this is nicer than, just going straight through of like how to enter a Swift listing, because you can, again, find that on YouTube anywhere, but the actual trying to figure out how to write a property, nobody taught me this specifically in one class. It's just many years of having to find out this information and just, bookmarking all the websites and stuff that helped me. And, I've got a pattern down now that, yeah, it takes me 8 hours, but it's a smooth 8 hours because I have all my processes in line. We still have this in the marketing. This is, the whole set of doing your live listing. And I still use this to this day because there are still things that I will forget. Too many things distracting me. I'm like, okay, where the heck was that at next? Oh, I need to, upload the disclosures to Remind and to Showing Time. And if I didn't have this checklist, I'd forget it. Even doing this 20 years, I'd forget it. So this is super helpful for me. It may just be old age, but my memory is not as good as it used to be. And lists work wonderful.
All right, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much, Stephanie, not only for doing this, but putting the time it took to put together this presentation for these guys, and also giving them the insight that you've had over the last decade of working on this and why it works. So I appreciate you taking the time, guys. I appreciate you guys showing up. And like I said, we will save all of this so you can go back and watch it again and again and again. And we're here to help you when you need it. And it's all here in your chat. So pull that PDF down if you haven't already.
Thank you. You guys have a great week.
Bye. Thanks, Steph. Talk to you guys soon.